Hey everyone, welcome to Recess, brought to you by Roadmonk. We're so glad you could take a break with us today. My name is Liz and I'm the event manager at Roadmonk, and I'll be hosting our Recess session. Along with Recess, Roadmonk also has a podcast called Product to Product that you can subscribe to on your preferred podcasting platform. As for Recess, we'll be recording this live session, but we will also be posting the recording plus a summary with time codes on our Medium page in the coming days. Feel free in the chat to let us know where you're from, what company you're at, and what role you're in. We also love seeing repeat attendees, so if you've been to a Recess session before, please let us know. Today we have Vanessa, Roadmonk's content marketing specialist, moderating. She'll be taking your questions, so feel free to send them in throughout this conversation, and we'll be answering them in the last 10 minutes of this 30-minute session. To drop your questions, you'll notice there's a Q&A box probably located on the bottom of your Zoom screen. So just drop them in there. All right, let's get started. So today we have Ralf from Universal Music Group, and he's coming all the way from Germany. So welcome, Ralf.
Hey, hi, thanks for having me.
So Ralf is currently the product manager mobile at Universal Music Group. And to get this conversation started, Ralf, can you just tell us a little bit more about yourself and how you got involved with product?
Yeah, sure. So I studied business administration, and after that, I got my first full-time job as a category manager in an e-commerce company, because I always wanted to be in the digital space, so to say, right? And I did this for 3 years, but I know something was missing at some point, you know, and then I got an offer from a gaming company in Berlin, and I wasn't sure about, okay, Berlin, I don't know, gaming, I don't know. And I thought, okay, but I want to try it, you know, I want to take the adventure. And that was 7 years ago. And then I started basically as a product manager, and gaming industry means free to play gaming, mobile games, PC games, and it's extremely fast. It's very dynamic. You learn a lot. You learn a lot about how you use data, you know, how you gain insights, how you basically create items in the game, how you create new features, and basically how you run your own little world, because you're kind of the CEO of the game, right? And so it's a stressful world, but also it's great for learning. And so it's really something interesting to do once in your life. And a few years ago, then I did the switch and moved to the music industry, where I'm right now. And yeah, so that's my current job as a product manager for Universal Music.
Very nice. So I'm guessing most of our attendees know of Universal Music. So can you still give us just like a very high level overview of the company, and also how your role specifically fits into it?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I hope that everybody knows Universal Music. So we are the market leader in the music industry. And so all the big ones, you know, are basically from us, like Taylor Swift, Drake. If you go a bit old school, like the Beatles, Rolling Stones, or if you want to go to Germany, Rammstein, all from Universal Music. And so that's basically where the main action is. But still, as you all noted in the last years, new players entered the realm of music. So first to say the DSPs like Spotify, Apple Music, obviously, and they changed a lot. And now even new players are coming in like TikTok. And for Universal Music, it's really important to take part of this transformation of the music industry. And we do this, obviously. And one way we do this is the marketing labs we have here in Berlin. So we help to like support artists in their way to reach out to the fans better, but also to generate more streams on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, and so on. And in the end, just to use these like new possibilities better. And so yeah, there basically I come in 2 ways. So I have 2 projects. My main project is an app, is a music discovery app, where users should discover new music in a very active way. Because if you go on Spotify, it's more passive discovering, but we try to make this more active, more interactive, more engaging. And yeah, for us, obviously there are benefits which are obvious. And the other project is like, yeah, maybe 10%, 20% of my time. That's a web tool, and it's about curating Spotify playlists. So it's an internal tool, and for that I only have 2 engineers for the app project. I have a cross-functional team, you know, the classical setup, and yeah, so that's my basic contribution to the company. I try to generate more insight and also more activity for the artists that we have.
Very cool. earlier when you're talking about sort of your career path to Universal, you mentioned working as a gaming product manager, which is, I think, a very unique sort of like area of product management. And when we were originally talking, you talked a bit about how this influences you in your current role. And one thing I found really interesting is you brought up sort of those like 3 big pillars of gamification and how you apply them now. Can you tell us like a little bit more about how that past experience is influencing you now?
Yeah. Well, so first of all, gamification is like, it's like a buzzword, right? Everybody wants to use it. And I think sometimes it's a bit overused, you know, maybe you don't want to like open your insurance app and then it's gamified and you can reach a new level, right? That seems weird. But my app is highly engaging, right? It's user facing, it's for younger audience that makes a lot of sense. And so that you don't get lost in the small things, sometimes you need to have like a bigger picture. And in gamification, I would say there are 3 big pillars that help to basically to hook your users, to retain your users, to help the engagement. The first one is being part of a community, right? So whatever you do, you want to be part of a community. And this I like noticed in my gaming time that basically no matter how good the quality of the game was, because I also was on games that say they weren't the highest quality, right? And but the community was strong and people always log back into the game to enjoy the community. And there are many examples out there of games, also ones I didn't work on, that are not young, they're not fresh. And if you would start nowadays, you wouldn't have fun, but people are still playing them because of the community, right? And for my app, I want to achieve the same, that people can connect to each other, that they can play each other's music, right? And that they have this kind of feeling of a community that should help. And yeah, so the other pillar is basically this, like, seems very old school, like when we still lived in caves, it's like this hunter mentality, right? And we all know this, oh, I found a great deal on Amazon, or I found a movie I didn't know before was great on Netflix. And it's like, boom, it's like cool for us. And yeah, then as a hunter, we're happy, right? And so I also want to give this achievement to users that they find and discover new music. So that's basically the core that we have for the users, what should basically give them joy and a personal gratification in a way. And there I'm basically at the last pillar, which is this personal gratification, right? Is something that you have a challenge or a task where you control of and that you can finish. You know, it's tiny things. Like imagine you have a to-do list and it's really like gratifying if you like do like the press and it's like the ping and then it's like, oh, the task is done, right? And it's super gratifying. And so we try to do the same, like people can finish music or finishing sets and voting for music, and they should get this kind of like personal gratification feeling. And in the end, this all combines to like a big reward for yourself. All these 3 pillars, they combine in one big personal reward. And that's what we're trying to achieve. And that's like, I think, where gamification is helpful and not harmful.
And so for, say, like the music discovery app you're working on, what would that sort of like final reward be, would you say?
So the final reward would be that you discover new music. So we have also like a playlist, like Shazam style a bit. We were inspired, didn't steal it. And so you have this playlist and then you can like sync it to Apple Music or Spotify, wherever you subscribe to. And you find new music. And also if you find new music that nobody else knows about, you can basically publish in the app and say, hey, I found this, check it out, and so on. So it's like this loop we want to create in the end.
Very cool. And sort of when we were talking a little bit earlier, I remember in our pre-interview you were saying that right now this is only based in Germany, but it's also like, as a side note, international rollout soon, because it's down.
So it kind of, so we in the German-speaking region was the start. Now we launched also in Sweden, and we have a few other Western European territories like are really like really like very soon happy to join. And then also at some point, obviously some really big markets that we want to go at, and but I can't go into detail for this now.
That's okay. It's like, this just sounds really great. But I remember you were saying it wasn't released here yet. Also, as part of your role at Universal is to increase engagement metrics and retention through user discovery. So how do you conduct user discovery at Universal? Do you have a specific process? What tools do you maybe use?
So first of all, quantitative is basically what we use most of the time. And of course, you also see what the users are doing in the end, right? So we use Mixpanel, and there you basically check the user events, user behavior, and it's extremely helpful. And also we do a lot of A/B testing for new features, and we see how people are behaving. But in the end, sometimes you just don't know why something is working good or something doesn't work. You know, if retention goes down and you don't know why because you didn't implement something new, sometimes it's weird. So then you go into like the direct user discovery, and then we do several things, right? So we do the easiest thing you could do basically is go to the app stores and see what the reviews are saying. Like people are like sometimes very vocal about stuff and like 1 star, worst app ever, and I hate German rap and so on, right? But then a bit more complex, you go into like real like user interviews, like you put up a camera and you talk to them, which needs a lot of preparation, but it's also like very giving and very rewarding for us. User surveys online, of course, are also very interesting, can be sometimes a bit misleading, but also extremely helpful. And yeah, so that's more or less what we're looking for. Sometimes we also try to get like direct contact to people in the app, like through community management. Is also something I learned from the gaming industry. There you have like usually like, yeah, customer service people, or you also call them game masters, and they're basically the like line between me and the direct end user, right? And so that's very helpful, like to see what's going on, what do they want to improve, why do they use the app so much, what is the pain point, right? And that's also quite helpful. And yeah, that's so like I would say like standard ways that we do user discovery. And one thing I forgot, also inside the company I talk, of course, because they're also stakeholders and they also have ideas. They also have like requirements, and so that's another way of finding interesting new possibilities to improve the app.
Yeah, definitely. Can you share a specific feature that came about because of doing user discovery that you maybe saw like, oh, people really want X, and then you implemented it, and how did it go?
Yeah. So actually it's not about a feature that was like developed from scratch, but we already had, and we thought like, oh, it's great, it's working, it's intuitive, right? So it was just like the playback of a song and how you would vote for it. And we thought, it's so easy, right? But we lost the outsider view, the fresh eyes. And then we did this this series of user interviews. I don't know how much, were like 12 or something. Like I just got a bunch of young people who would be the target group of the app in the end. And then we did some very exploratory testing of the app, and then they came to this part of the app, and they didn't get it. And I was like, oh, what? How can they not get it? It's so easy, right? And obviously the mistake is not with them, it's with me or with the team, because it just didn't work. And so from there, basically we got, okay, we need to change it. And so we changed 2 things. First of all, we made it easier and faster to actually do this playback and do the voting, and we added tutorials. So that was basically the start. And this then took many iterations, like for example, tutorial, right? And we started off first just with like static images. Then we moved to like a video. Then we moved to like interaction. Then we changed with tooltips and so on. And so it took many iterations until we were at a point where we were like, okay, the funnel is great, and the retention increased, and also engagement metrics increased. So in the end, it's all about, you know, like testing, and then iterations are when you're at a point that you're happy with, and then actually you need to iterate more because you're never really happy, right? So that's in the end is like how we did it there.
Very true. That's really interesting. What are some other challenges that you've hit working on your music discovery app at Universal, and how did you overcome them?
Of course, the music industry, it's not the tech industry, you know, so sometimes you work with stakeholders who are like not used to fast approaches to A/B testing, to be very data driven. This changes fast, you know, so you see the transformation basically live. And this is something that's can be challenging, but also interesting, you know. And so also when I want to tell a story, I have to be sure that it makes sense, right? Because they will call me out on that. And that is a challenge I have to work with, that the stakeholders are different than in gaming, because in gaming you have basically the hardcore nerds, so to say, who are extremely data driven, and they look at different things. So one thing that you basically, it's different here. Here you have more business development, even more interpersonal things happening. And these are challenges, but also like things that benefits me in the end, because I learn from these, you know. And yeah, so that's a few challenges that are happening here.
Yeah, talking about stakeholder management, I'd say that's something that's like very common for PMs to run into, and sometimes having some trouble with it, because especially when you have a vocal stakeholder and they're saying one thing, and then say your user discovery is saying another thing. What are some tips that you have for managing those stakeholders And
so I've been lucky that like at least currently I didn't have really like issues with stakeholders. In gaming there were a few harder ones, I have to say.
okay.
And in the end it's always base your decisions on data, so that helps, you know, and try to be there as good as possible. And also if you do your forecast, do your homework and base it on that, right? And then try to tell a story when you present something to them. Try to tell a story. And from there, basically take them, like try to motivate them to get on board, right? Because if they are motivated to and they like your product, then they also will commit to this, right? Because I don't want to motivate people. I just want to tell a story and say I have this product that works and we can achieve something with this. Just listen to me, right? And so in the end, it's just like tell a nice story, base it on data, and then you are usually in a good spot, right? And always be open also for other feedback. You know, sometimes I'm newbie, maybe not anymore in the music industry. So in the beginning was like all extremely new for me, and I didn't know what was working, what were the big players. I mean, of course, I knew Spotify and so on, but for example, how big YouTube is in the scene, and so what kind of genre is working and how different the territories are, right? And so there's also some things that I need to be open to and to understand, and always like improve my horizon.
Yeah, definitely. That's really interesting too, how you say to tell a story. I think that's really interesting, and think like a very good way to get a message across, because that's how people connect to something and relate to it, instead of just being like, here's a graph, this is why we should do it. While that's very helpful, if you have that story with it, it makes it so much more powerful. So I really like how you like storytelling. We're starting to have some questions come through. So let's jump over to questions. Someone asked, when you are testing these ideas, what metrics are you using for retention?
What metrics for retention? Retention metrics. No, I mean, so basically depending on the feature, first of all, I need to be sure that's actually affecting retention, because it's not always said that it's really like affecting it. But usually we look at the short-term retention, because that's still like one of the biggest challenges, because the competitive space is so big for music apps, you know, that it's like keeping them in very fast. And so yeah, we look at day 1, day 3, day 7, and so on. So unfortunately, we don't have the time to look at like really long term, like day 90 retention. That doesn't make sense. This works in gaming, but not in music. And so that's what I'm looking at. And then we also have engagement metrics, like how many sets the person is finishing. You know, that's in the end, it's also like, what is good, what is retention good for if I don't have the engagement metrics? Like how many sets does a user finish on average, right? And how many songs do they listen to, and how many Spotify plays do they do, and so on. So it's always aggregated data, obviously, like average per user, but that's usually is very interesting to me.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, sort of like speaking about a little bit of like the discovery, do you also track, say, like someone starts out listening to like Taylor Swift, and then all of a sudden they end up all the way to like Rolling Stones, and that was because of recommendations? Do you like follow, do you track sort of that user journey through the like discovery process?
Yeah, and unfortunately, there are some issues also in terms of privacy. So we can't check this actually. So and but one thing we can say, so right now it's mostly Germany, and now in Sweden as well. Our app is basically very German rap heavy, but that basically we are a mirror of the German market, and the youth are listening only to German rap basically, right? There's some pop, some dance. And so if you go worldwide, like American music would dominate, obviously. Then you have people like Drake and Kanye West, and Cardi B, which would be dominating, right? So we are just in the end a mirror of the market, but we also have like always like niche genres which are working to a certain extent. But so like from Taylor Swift to Rolling Stones, that would be nice, because I love the Rolling Stones, but very unlikely, unfortunately.
Okay. Our next question is asking, have you tried to utilize allies for your project? And if yes, how successful has this been?
Allies?
Yes. So I'm guessing in terms of stakeholder management. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Question asker.
Yeah, so what we try to do is always like to have some kind of functional inputs. So the good thing about Universal, obviously, we have all these stars, right? It's not that I can say, hey, Drake, what's happening? Could you do a shout out on Instagram? Of course, that wouldn't work. But so sometimes we can do this. And there are also in marketing labs, other things that we use playlists, YouTube and TikTok and so on. And so we can do a lot of different things that combine and basically so we have win-win situations. So for example, we mirror our app on YouTube and then we get new installed through YouTube and they get more viewers through us, and so that works. And yeah, of course, inside the company, I always need to be aware that I need to have stakeholders who enjoy the app as well, right? Because it's also a tool for them in the end and they have to enjoy it, not just the users, both of them, inside and outside.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Our next question is asking, do you work in an Agile or Waterfall environment? So I guess how does your product team function?
Yeah, so yeah, it's the classical Agile one. So it's not really Scrum, it's not really Kanban, so it's Scrumban. And yeah, so I have my Jira board and then we do our sprints and yeah, then we basically do our sprint planning and so on. Do our retro, do our demos, and yeah, and so as I said, in the one example, it's always about iteration, and so this wouldn't work in waterfall mode. At least I don't think it works. So to be honest, I never worked in waterfall mode, but I think that the reason that everybody went to Agile, right? And so when we plan something at the beginning of the year and we say this will be done in December, this obviously wouldn't work, right? So it's more about this iteration. So what I do in the end of the year, if I look at a roadmap, it's more vague, right? The closer it gets to the present, the more detailed it is. So that's, I think, how a roadmap should look. And so this you can basically only do in Agile, I would say.
Yeah, and I guess just to expand on this question, what does your team look like at Universal? Sort of what is the layout? Is it product manager with a few engineers and a designer? Do you work with, say, data scientists? You did talk a lot about data and the importance of it when making decisions. Or is that you who's doing that?
I'm the data scientist. So because we are the small team, we don't have expert for everything. So I'm kind of not the person for everything, but for a lot. So I'm really end-to-end product manager, would start with the user insights, aligning the strategy, roadmap, actually releasing it in the app stores. But yeah, then I have my engineers, I have a UX designer, I have a growth manager, a marketing person, I have 2 content persons. And yeah, then if I need something else, really something deep in terms of a BI, we have BI people here who usually do something else, but I can ask them for queries, right? Because we also have internal data tools where I can get data, and if it's some complex stuff in SQL or something, they can help, because then obviously I also have limits. And so Mixpanel is pretty great, but they have this JQL language, and there I have to say I'm very limited right now. And so then I also need help from them or from my engineer to have very big queries.
Yeah. So kind of also expanding on teams. Obviously, Universal is a global company, and you've worked before for sort of internationally. So what are some challenges of working on an international team, and how do you overcome them?
So yeah, I mean, the last time I worked on a really national team is a long time ago. So Berlin is a very international city in a way. So if you want to learn German, don't come to Berlin. So I think international has mostly advantages, right? So you have different kind of mindsets, different kind of energy levels, also different experiences, which is usually great. And anyway, you do documentation and everything in Jira, and everything else you do in English, right? So usually that helps. And so I would say the only disadvantage can be sometimes there could be a language barrier. Not everybody is amazing in English. That could sometimes be, but it's rare. And sometimes it's also communication things, let's say a Scandinavian person would communicate differently than a Korean person than a Canadian person, right? And so you have to keep that in mind, that a yes from a Korean, Canadian, or Swedish guy could mean 3 different things. And so this, you have to keep in mind for this. That is the only really difficulty, but you learn this with time.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think in our pre-interview, we did talk about how Canadians do say "I'm sorry" a lot, and going around navigating. That is just part of our dialect. For
that won't happen with Germans, I can tell you that.
moving on to our next question. Somebody wrote in saying, I'm a graduate student presently at Carnegie Mellon University, and product management is something that I find quite interesting. Could you tell me how you shifted careers and what you did to familiarize yourself with the product management role at your first stint in the gaming industry?
Yeah. So actually, the interesting thing is, when I started, I think product management, I don't want to say was in his baby shoes or something, but it was still even like newer than today. And nowadays, like it seems like one of the most popular disciplines, basically. And obviously, there's still no real course of studies you can do. But the standard way is either way you come from the business side or you come from the tech side and you do computer science or something like this. And I think in the end, yeah, you can just go in and try it, right? So if you start a junior product position, you need to have skills basically in three areas, right? If you want to like create a Venn diagram out of product management, it will be business, tech, and UX. And so you will have strengths in probably two sectors, maybe in one, maybe in all three. And so you can just start, and try to get a head start in that area, right? And for me, it's always about learnings. There's so much to learn, and I guess one advice would be try to learn learn how to learn. But if you're currently a student, I think you know how to do this. And there are so many free things there to learn, right? Especially in these Corona times, I think we all got used to like watching YouTube videos, how to learn stuff, and reading articles and books. And I think that's how you basically can move forward very fast. And of course, talk to product managers and try to learn like in this session here.
Yeah, that's really good advice. I think too, a lot of like, when talking to product managers, they talk a lot about like mentorship. Oh my gosh, words. Did you have a mentor at all when you started at product management? Was there someone there that kind of showed you?
No, unfortunately not. So gaming was like this, as I said, very fast, very stressful. So it was like, I don't want to say everybody from self, but it was sometimes a bit stressful, and it was like, let's get a new version. We need to monetize more. Rah. And all hell breaks loose. And so no, I didn't. But so yeah, this would help to have a mentor in the beginning, to shadow people. And I think if you go to like an established company, they also will set this up, right? So that you can learn from a more senior person, and that you then can basically learn the best stuff. And also best stuff is very vague because there is never like the perfect solution. Just Google prioritization methods or frameworks, and you will have 10 different models, and you have to basically try it out and see what works best for you.
Yeah, that's really good advice. We're nearing the end of our session, and just before we end, I've got to ask, who is your favorite artist that Universal represents?
My favorite artist, oh my. Actually, the artist I listened to the most last decade is actually from the competition, so I can't mention him. But I guess the two bands I listen the most to who are in the Universal roster are the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. So yes, very, very old, and old white men talking about their issues, but that's also life of product manager somehow. And so yeah, these are, I guess, the ones I listen to the most. And I mean, they are just quality. I mean, you can't deny, and they're just great. Yeah.
Classics.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, as we wind down our session, I want to thank you, Ralf, for being so generous with your time and being a guest on Recess, and also you, the viewer, for attending. Ralf, where can people find you? Can they find you on Medium, LinkedIn, Twitter?
Yeah, so they can find me on LinkedIn. So just look for my name, and I guess I will also put the video there. And then I also have like this super generic personal website, but yeah, that's basically it.
Great. Also too, we have recorded this live session, and we will be posting this recording with a summary with time codes on Medium. So also look out for that. Our next Recess session will be on September 29th, and we look forward to having you join us. Thank you again, everyone, for dropping by, and thank you again, Ralf. So great talking with you today. Have a great week, everyone.
It was great. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.